Have you ever tried to affirm or visualize when you're feeling stressed and it just felt like nothing's working? Have you had difficulty with connecting to that imaginary scene or struggle with feeling it real? Like, no matter how hard you try to feel it real, the 3D just keeps screaming the opposite and it keeps showing you what you don't want. These are some of the most common challenges that we face when we are learning to apply these teachings and when we are learning to utilize conscious manifestation. One thing that we have to get crystal clear on is how to deal with the 3D and what to do when we are triggered by it. Because I'm noticing a lot of people are approaching this in a way that is not going to be very effective. So today I want to talk about how to navigate our day-to-day and how to deal with our 3D world when we are aiming to manifest a change, and especially what to do if we find ourselves triggered or anxious, frustrated, or in any way an undesirable state. Because how we approach this is everything. And I'm seeing a lot of people making this much harder for themselves than it has to be. So if you are struggling with imagining and going to the end, feeling it real, if you will, if you are having difficulties with managing your 3D circumstances while attempting to stay in the end state, then definitely stick around to the end of the video, because today I want to talk about how we want to view the 3D and how we need to see this going forward. I also want to talk about a very sneaky way that we may be unintentionally sabotaging ourselves and how to course correct. By the way, hi, I'm Missy Renee. And on this channel, we talk all things manifestation and the law of assumption. So if that's a topic that you want to learn more about, then definitely be sure to subscribe to the channel, hit the bell icon for notifications, and if you enjoy these videos, be sure to hit that thumbs up button. If you're interested in any of my resources, such as my coaching programs, workshops, or masterclasses, I got links to all of that down in the description box below, so don't forget to check that out. In today's video, I want to talk about how to deal with triggers or when we are negatively reacting to 3D circumstance and how to successfully navigate this so that we can maintain that state of the wish fulfilled. Because this is where I'm seeing a lot of people taking the wrong approach in this practice. More often than not, we are looking at the 3D and the absence of our desires as a sign that we are failing to manifest, not realizing that what you are looking at in the 3D in this present moment is all just a reflection of your old story, of an old state of consciousness. And because we are perceiving the 3D as the real world, if we are not seeing the things that we want in a time that meets our expectations, we presume that we are doing something wrong. The problem here is that when we are triggered by something, we are no longer in creation mode. We go into survival mode. We go into fix it, fight or flight. When this happens, our attention becomes fixated on the problem at hand. Thus, instead of keeping the focus and attention on the end state, on what you desire, our attention goes to trying to fix our reality. And when we are trying to fix, we are more apt to using force. The problem here is that the change in feeling doesn't happen by force or willpower. It happens when you surrender. It happens when you relax yourself into a state where your imagination becomes more vivid and real than your outside circumstances. So I want to break down 5 points that are important to understand when dealing with your 3D circumstances and what to do when you get triggered by it. The first point, and arguably the most important, is understanding that your 3D is old news. Your present 3D circumstances are just the physical echo or reflection of who you used to be. It is a delayed response to what you have been internalizing and what has been impressed subconsciously. The problem here is that we tend to look at the 3D as if it's happening in real time because we have made the 3D synonymous with the present moment. Your present 3D circumstances are just a reflection of your past. So instead of looking at this like a live streaming of current events and current reality, we need to start to see it as yesterday's news. And I've talked about this before on this channel multiple times, but it has admittedly been a while, and it is important to reinforce this point because without question, we get stuck on the 3D more than anything, and typically where we are finding ourselves having the most struggle. Instead of perceiving the 3D as the present, we need to start seeing our imagination and what we are imagining right now as the present moment. What you are imagining right now, what you are feeling and believing and assuming right now, will determine what is broadcasted tomorrow or a week from now. Just because something is appearing a certain way right now does not mean that it is going to continue to appear this way. And this is something that we must come to learn and trust. That everything in our 3D circumstances are subject to change. And that change lies solely in us. This is how we start to begin to detach from our present 3D circumstances and how we begin to not let it affect us on such a deep level. But what happens if you do get affected? What happens if you do react in a way that is not ideal? Because this happens to virtually everybody at some point or another on this journey. And this is really at the heart of why I wanted to make today's video, because when it comes to how we react, when it comes to feeling triggered or spiraling or finding yourself having that negative inner talking, the way to deal with that is to do nothing. Just observe. And I understand that this sounds incredibly counterintuitive, because when we are triggered, the first thing that we're going to want to do is fix the problem. It's when we're triggered or feeling upset that we're going to try to talk ourselves down, or we're going to try to flip our thoughts, or we're going to try to go to the end in that moment and imagine something. And this brings me to my second point that I want to make in this video, and that is we want to practice going to the end in imagination when we are feeling good or when we are feeling better, not when we are upset or triggered or spiraling. And it is so important to bring this up because I see a lot of people taking the exact opposite approach. When we feel good or calm or relaxed, we tend to think we're fine and we don't need to imagine. Everything's good. It's when we are triggered or stressed or spiraling that we then try to force ourselves into the end state, or we try to deflect it in some form or another. This is the least effective approach that we can take. I want you to think of your mind like a pond or still water. Only when that water is calm can it reflect the image that you hold. When the water is storming, or when you are emotionally triggered, that reflection is going to be distorted. So when we try to imagine, when we are feeling upset, when we are feeling anxious or stressed, more often than not, we are reinforcing the chaos that we're feeling inside. At the very least, it's going to feel very, very difficult to feel yourself in that state of the wish fulfilled. When we try to go to the end, when we're triggered, it's just going to feel stressful. It's going to feel strained. It's going to feel forced. It's most certainly not going to feel real. And it's going to feel exhausting because of the amount of effort and willpower that goes into that. But if instead you are going to the end and imagining when you are feeling relaxed or when you are feeling in a good mood or even just feeling neutral, you are going to notice significantly less of that resistance. And it's going to feel much more enjoyable. Basically, it's going to feel much more natural and effortless to connect to that end state when you are feeling calm versus when you are feeling stressed or triggered. So take advantage of going to the end when you are feeling good, not as a means to fix it when you are feeling bad. The third important note when it comes to dealing with reacting to the 3D is to learn to observe your reactions instead of going back into autopilot, instead of fighting it. Contrary to what we might believe sometimes, the 3D is not your enemy. It is your messenger sending you feedback. And your reactions to that messenger show you what is still alive within you in consciousness, or basically what you may still be attached to or still believing and assuming to be true. We know that we are beginning to make that shift in our self-concept by observing how we are reacting to our 3D circumstances. When we are able to look at the 3D without spiraling, without reacting negatively, and instead feel a sense of calm, that is one of our best gauges to know that we are, in fact, making that change subconsciously, and that we are beginning to live from the end. So when you notice a reaction, when you notice yourself feeling frustrated or anxious, we start to get the heart beating fast, and we start to get the pit in the bottom of our stomach. All the sensations and all the things that come with that negative reaction, just observe it. Don't try to fix it. Don't try to fight it. Don't try to flip it. Don't try to negotiate with it. Just let it be. Observe it the same way that you would observe a weather pattern. And remind yourself, oh, this is just the old state. This is yesterday's news. It's just an old pattern that's played out. Nothing more, nothing less. Once again, it has no bearing on what is going to happen in the future. It just is. It's the byproduct of an old state. Because when we learn to observe these circumstances without attachment and without spiraling, you sever that attachment to that old state more and more. We want to remember that reaction is identification. What you react and respond to is what you are identifying with in this moment. But even if our reactions are not ideal, it is not cause to panic or cause to try to fix the problem. It is just the messenger showing you an old state of consciousness. And our reactions to that messenger determine if we are still, in fact, attached to that old story or not. The fourth important point when dealing with triggers in our 3D is to revise, revise, revise. Revision will be your very best friend if you learn to utilize it. And if you are a regular viewer on my channel, you have heard me say this before, and you're going to continue to hear me say it over and over again. It's important to remember that just because we are triggered by something does not mean that we're failing. Just because the 3D is showing us something outpictured that was not ideal does not mean that you are failing. It means that there's an old story that still needs to be revised. So instead of allowing yourself to fall down that rabbit hole or begin to spiral, use it as a cue to take a deep breath, pause, and recognize that there's still a story here that we want to change. Say to yourself in those moments, this feeling is not my enemy, and it's not bad. It's showing me what I've been assuming and believing to be true. Then, once you have calmed down and you are in a more relaxed or neutral state, we want to imagine the ideal outcome that we would have wanted to have happen instead. And this is something that I recommend everybody get into a daily practice of doing, especially if you are confronted with 3D circumstances that are not ideal on a regular basis. Revision is one of the most powerful tools that we have at our disposal. And this was even emphasized by Neville Goddard himself. He talked constantly about the importance of revising the day's events if they were not ideal or if you reacted harshly and in a way that was not good. If you find yourself reacting, let yourself react. Let yourself be mad. Let yourself be sad, frustrated, pissed off, whatever the case is. That's okay. It is okay to have emotions. You're human. And then once we have come down, once we are no longer in that heightened emotional state, we can then begin to direct our attention to revising that event or that circumstance so that it played out in a way that was more ideal and more preferred. Now, I've made a number of videos talking about revision and how to apply this practice, so if you want more information about that, I will leave the link to my latest video up here, and I'll also have links to a few more in the description box below. But when we learn to use revision as a way to change our reactions and our circumstances, this is one of the most powerful and effective ways to bring about that change in your 3D world. The last point, the fifth point, when it comes to dealing with triggers and 3D circumstances, is to begin to use the 3D as feedback. Instead of seeing it as something that is sabotaging you or something to your disadvantage, see it as a way that you can really begin to hone in on what it is within you that needs to change. Because the 3D is always only a reflection of your self-concept, your beliefs, your assumptions, what you are identifying with, what you are internalizing. And it's showing you where you may still hold resistance or where you may still hold attachment to that old story. So instead of panicking, instead of letting yourself spiral over what it looks like right now, pause for a moment and just ask yourself, what have I been assuming or feeling into that is causing this reflection in front of me now? Don't try to run from it. Don't try to suppress it. Really start to key in why these things are showing up and why you are reacting to them in the first place. If nothing else, this is going to help you to build your faith in the law, because the more that we begin to see the patterns and the parallels between what we have been imagining, what we have been internalizing, and what is being outpictured, it's only going to solidify the proof that this law is real and that the law is always working. Use these triggers and these moments as intel, and then on what to begin imagining when you are in a more relaxed state, when you are in a better feeling state. More and more, you're going to find yourself less attached and emotionally charged by the 3D circumstances and begin to see it more for what it is, an old state of consciousness, that we're effectively looking at our past self. And the more and more that we build our faith and begin to stay faithful to our inner world and who we are internally, what we are feeling, what we are assuming and believing, the outer world will have no choice but to reflect that. So the next time you are triggered by your 3D circumstances or feeling upset, don't rush to try to affirm or visualize or fix it. Just breathe. Just observe. Put yourself in the role as the observer to the best of your ability. This may take a little bit of practice to get used to, because initially we are very attached to our 3D circumstances, but with practice, you are going to be better and better able to just see it for what it is and just breathe. Allow yourself to relax as much as possible. And it's when we soften, it's when we do start to feel calmer, when we do come down from that intense emotional charge, that we then focus our attention on going to the end. We want to practice imagining in the state of the wish fulfilled when we are feeling good, or when we are feeling neutral, or when we are feeling calm, versus trying to go to the end to fix the problem when we are spiraling. Relaxation is not laziness, contrary to what we may believe and feel. Relaxation is alignment. It is putting yourself in a state where you are going to be much better able to imagine that end state and to actually feel into it. It is going to make you more susceptible to your imaginal acts. We cannot force our manifestation through tension and will. Instead, remember that we allow it through ease. Because when you are relaxed or when you are feeling better, your imaginal acts become effortless. And that's where the magic happens. And this is the most important takeaway that I want everyone to get from this video. Know when to utilize your imaginal acts. Don't use it as a tool to try to fix things when you are in the middle of a spiral or a strong negative reaction. You are going to find it immensely difficult to connect to that end state in those times. Instead, go to the end when you're feeling good, when you're having a better day, or when you are noticing periods of the day where you feel calmer. If you receive good news or something happens that really lifts your spirits, take advantage of those times. Go all in when you are already in a better state. The only thing that we should be doing when we are spiraling or frustrated or reacting negatively is just observation, just observing it and seeing it for what it is. It is an old story. It is an old state. The 3D circumstances here in the present are just the reflection of what we have imagined in the past. Allow yourself to feel however you feel. Feel your emotions, process them, let yourself be mad, give yourself a moment to be human, and then once we have begun to come down from that emotional charge, revise it. Revise the day, revise the incident so that something better happened instead. When you learn to take this approach and when you learn to utilize these teachings in the times that work best for you, and when you are most susceptible to actually feeling yourself in that state of the wish fulfilled, this practice is going to be exponentially easier for you. And you're going to find that things will happen for you much quicker. And the more that we do this, the more that we take the approach of learning to go with more of a flow and go to the end in the times where you are already feeling good, you are already feeling better, instead of trying to fix everything, that is how you actually begin to leave those subconscious impressions, change those beliefs and assumptions, and ultimately manifest whatever it is you desire. So I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. I hope you find it helpful. If you did enjoy the video, be sure to give it a thumbs up. And if you have any questions about dealing with the 3D circumstances or what to do when we are triggered, leave them down in the comments below. I would love to hear from you. Also, if you are interested in any of my resources, such as my coaching programs, workshops and masterclasses, my blog, my podcast, my social links, all of that information is down in the description box below, so don't forget to check that out. Also, be sure to check out the other videos on this channel. Don't forget to check out my Manifestation Fundamentals playlist. Each video covers a different topic, but they all talk about how to manifest the best life ever. So until we meet next time, all of you lovely people, please take care, be well, and never forget how powerful you truly are. Happy manifesting, guys.